The United States government is going all in on crypto.
The United States will be the crypto capital of the planet and the Bitcoin superpower of the world.
The support so far for crypto now sending its most widely known currency, Bitcoin, to near record highs.
Other governments around the world are taking notice, and while some are preparing to do the same, others are questioning the US's motives. Is crypto really the future? Or is there some grand plan here that you and I don't know anything about? If crypto is the future, then is it actually going to bring change that leaves us better off? Or are we heading into a dark world where fiat debasement, stablecoins, and cryptocurrency lead to worse inequality, the end of privacy, and a new 1% elite class? Today, I had the chance to sit down with the one and only Waters Above, and we discuss CBDCs, the US government's agenda, and what the 1% don't want you to know about cryptocurrency and market psychology. If you want to make sure that you're prepared for the changes that are coming to the financial system and that you do not get left behind or fall into some of the common traps that every crypto investor falls into every 4 years, then I highly recommend that you watch this until the very end. Let's dive in. Waters Above. Welcome, my man. How are you doing?
I'm doing better every day. I'm really excited to connect with you, brother. I think this is going to be a good one.
Fantastic, man. Yeah, I really appreciate it. I got the comment on the YouTube video a few months ago, and I was like, oh snap. I guess my content is reaching the right audience. Quickly, I want to go ahead and address this immediately. Talk to us a little bit about kind of keeping the pseudonymity and why you don't put your video on for your content.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a multifaceted answer, but I think like to be plain and simple, it's like just study where we're heading with the lack of privacy. Study where we're heading with digital identification coming. Study where we're heading with potential social score stuff. Study the fact that we put our identity out there on social media and then we complain about the fact that it's being, our identities are being stolen. And so I feel like it's kind of my backstory, if anything, that led me to making the decision. But the funny thing is, a lot of people told me that I wouldn't be able to succeed if I didn't show myself. And I kind of have that energy that whenever anybody tells me that I can't do something, I'm like even more motivated to do it. You know what I mean? So I guess the last thing I could say on it though is I've had so many experiences working as a trainer in person with people, doing, training seminars. And I've been a traveling trainer for one of the companies that I worked for. I had to work face to face with many, many people. I had to interview uh, all the potential new employees. I had to be in that position that I learned over time. Sometimes the identity actually takes away from the message. It takes away from the truth. It takes away from the power behind the knowledge and the wisdom. So I decided very intentionally to select the name that I selected for my brand and the logo that I decided to select and the decision to be off camera, all because of that. So it's a really truthful, intentional, purposeful decision.
Understood. And do you mind diving a little bit into the name as well?
Yeah, of course. So it comes from the Bible, from Genesis, the book of Genesis. And the very start of the Bible, they basically explain the creation of this realm, of this earth realm, and it brings up the concept of a firmament, and then it says the firmament is heaven, and it also talks about God separating the waters below from the waters above and creating this thing called the firmament, which separates it, kind of like a barrier, a dome. And but I didn't even get to that before I was doing some deep diving into the individual named Warner von Braun, who I'm not sure if you know too much about this individual, but he was working for he was in NASA. Uh, and I'll do my best to explain this in simple terms, but he was behind the Apollo mission, the famous mission where we landed on the moon. And he came over to the United States from Germany. He was in the National Socialist Party. So under the quote unquote bad guys that we were all fighting against in World War II. You know what I'm saying? And he was brought over to the United States of America through something called Operation Paperclip. So I was studying this stuff before I even got to the Bible side of it. And interestingly enough, that's one of the most controversial quote unquote conspiracy theories is like, did we land on the moon? So this was the individual that was behind making that mission what it was, right? And he was allegedly a Nazi, like according to our historical narrative. And him and many other top scientists went on to become and form our intelligence agencies that we have here in the United States, NASA, NSA, pretty much all the very important programs that are running behind the scenes that are arguably more powerful than government itself. They're literally more powerful. So now getting back to the connection here with the Bible, if you look at Warner von Braun's tombstone, he literally only has a Bible verse written on it. And I was like, oh, this is pretty interesting. Like, why would this individual do that? No statement, just his name, the year he was born, the year he passed, and Psalm 19:1. So I looked up Psalm 19:1, and it says the heavens or the firmament, but it says the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork, which then references the beginning of the Bible, Genesis, where they bring up the term firmament for the first time. So I'll say it again really quickly. Wernher von Braun, the guy who had the most controversial space program of all time, only had one thing written on his tombstone, a Bible verse, Psalm 19:1. And it says, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Then you go to where the first time it said, and it connects to this separation of the waters above from the waters below. And that's where I got my name.
Fantastic. Okay. So that's actually very interesting. And I didn't know about this guy. So I'll have to continue to look into that after we get off here. Very cool.
100%.
So honestly, let's dive right into this because I know that you keep a pretty close eye on a lot of the developments that are happening in the world of digital assets, and that you tend to have a lens of looking at this a little bit more deeply than what it is on the surface. So I wanted to go ahead and ask you, this year we've had this incredible push by the United States government to get legislation in place regarding essentially stable coins for one, and also
Mhm.
this digital asset infrastructure. So I wanted to step back and hear a little bit about, what are your thoughts on this urgency around that?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting sleight of hand going on because a lot of people believe that the Trump administration, and by the way, just to let everybody know, I'm very neutral in all of this. I'm not picking any sides. So I'm just going to tell everybody neutrally how I feel, um, and deliver that message from that vantage point. So I think though that we have an incredibly polarized world when it comes to their opinions on politics. In general, if we bring up Donald Trump and the United States, it's even more polarized, right? So a lot of people are under this belief that Donald Trump is the quote unquote crypto president, and simultaneously, he's the one that's avoiding us from having this thing called a central bank digital currency, right? A CBDC. But what's hilarious about it all is the Genius Act and all these other things that are going on are really basically giving the green light to the government to create their own programmable, digital, fully traceable digital stablecoins. And they, of course, need to understand what they're working with. So they're creating this legislation now to find out, what is Tether up to? What is Circle up to? What is all these other moving parts? And obviously, you're aware and your audience is aware that there's probably upwards of 1,000 new cryptos created every single day. I think in the first cycle that I was in, there was only about like 20,000, and now there's like over 1.2 million. It's unbelievable how many of these projects are out there. So the answer is that I think the sleight of hand going on is making people believe that we're going to be safe and that there's all things are going to be fine and dandy. Just allow your government to create this quote unquote regulatory clarity and it'll be all good in the hood. When in actuality, they say they're not for CBDCs, they're just going to create their own thing and call it something differently, but it's the same thing. And that right there shows how gullible a lot of even crypto people are, people that are into blockchain technology, people that are promoting this stuff. And they don't see or understand the ultimate agenda behind UN Agenda 2030 and many other things that are behind the scenes going on with the Club of Rome, Council of 300. There's a lot to get into with that, but I find it to be one of those moments where, like all, there's a problem and their solution is something that will eventually bring more surveillance, more control, and they'll hand it to you in this package that doesn't make it look like it's a ferocious beast, but it actually will be. And I guess that's my long-winded answer to say that be very careful, everybody, when you're hearing about this new developments and regulatory clarity and believing that it's going to pump your bags to the moon or whatever, because that's not actually how it's going to go. It's a little bit deeper than that.
You know, I find this a fascinating topic here. I did one video about stable coins and how I think it was a couple of years ago you had like Ron DeSantis coming up on stage and saying, no, we won't have CBDCs in Florida or whatever. Or maybe
Yeah.
he was saying it on like a national level. And then we had Trump at the Bitcoin conference in Nashville, Tennessee. Uh, we won't allow the CBDCs. Everyone cheering and going crazy. And I couldn't help but think, I'm like, only the people in that specific room, right, would even have heard that term in my eyes,
Yeah, I agree.
And it's just like really, like you're gonna put your whole campaign on this thing that's, 1% of the United States population probably really even knows anything about. Um, I made an analogy in my video that like it's like the kid who gets caught doing something wrong, and it's like, I didn't do it. And it's like, listen, no one was even asking or thinking or talking about that, but
Mm,
you've now told on yourself.
yeah.
That's
There's
kind of
something
how
to
I
who
look at
that
it.
1% is, though, right, brother? Like the
True.
1% that you brought up are probably the loudest typers of the keyboard on crypto Twitter, now called X. These are the people that are getting everything going, like regarding the attention. So I think, perhaps this is a theory of mine, but I think Barron Trump is likely doing some advice here into
Hmm.
like all of that. What are you just named? Like the speaking on crypto and that energy. Because if you go back to Trump's first term, I mean, it was not the case. You literally have quotes coming from his mouth directly, speaking very poorly on crypto, blockchain technology, Bitcoin, etc. So, yeah, now it's a full 180. And of course, it's just super funny. I just saw this thing a couple days ago, and I don't really watch streamers, but it was a short that came up where Barron or Aiden Ross called Barron Trump and was like, "Hey, I need a loan of $250,000," and Barron Trump says ETH, and he's like,
Oh.
"Yeah, send ETH." Like on a live stream, so millions of people are seeing this, and it's like this kid clearly knows what's up, and that's what's probably in the air of Donald and many other people that are in this administration. And it's probably no different than any other time in history when we had some technological advancements and we needed to get these people who are not in this world, in this community, for example, to start hearing some of the buzzwords that come from our communities, right? Because again, we're the only people that are even saying the term CBDC. We're the only people that are saying stable coins. You go out and ask your neighbor, like, hey, have you heard of Tether? They're like, Tetherball? What? Like they have nobody knows. So I agree that you're spot on about this idea that it's not quite household yet, but they're doing everything they can to sort of plug us with these ideas and plug us with this, like, oh, I don't know what that is. I should be curious about it then. And it's all part of the plan. I think education is huge, and we're not even close to getting full blown understanding of how to push, excuse me, like we don't know how to use hardware wallets.
Mm,
Nobody, like nobody knows
right.
that. So I hope your audience understands my hesitation of bringing it up, but the point that I'm bringing it up is like, well, then when they push us further into crypto, they're gonna want the banks to custody your crypto, right? Because you don't
Mm.
want to learn how to use a hardware wallet, like it's complicated. So I hope you understand what I mean. Like it's all part of it, and I think Trump's 4 years will accomplish this.
You know, And it's clear too that just back to the beginning of what you were saying, that he's done a pretty solid job of getting younger people around him, even his kids, right, alone. Um, from the generations of his kids, he's got, Eric, he's got his Baron, and they both have this more a little bit more immersed in the rest of what's happening in the world, and especially in the world of technology. Even his company that he's built out, I've noticed some very notable members on the team of that company as well that are very deep in
Mm.
the actual space here. So, moving on just a little bit, we recently had some news from this kind of Russian advisor who was pointing out that maybe the United States may be looking to use gold and crypto as a way to eliminate its debt. And obviously, that is a very, very bold statement to make at what was actually the European Economic Forum. So, in front of other global leaders and so on. So, tell me a little bit about what you think of that. Is that something that makes sense to you? Is that on your radar? What are your thoughts there?
I know there's so much talks about like gold being revalued and like even a lot going on with like I mean, bro, where do we get started? This is a grandiose topic, and I think it's noticeable that the gold price is doing something that it hasn't done in a while, right? So if you're a gold investor, you're somebody who looks at charts, the gold chart is effectively going parabolic, and it looks wild to see because we had that whole time of just this long-winded sideways consolidation, and now we're perhaps seeing that all that buying that was going on, like quote unquote OTC or behind the scenes, it's now like showing up in maybe perhaps we could call it scarcity, like who knows, but I would effectively imagine that it's mostly governments that are gobbling up all of this gold, and no different than what happened with Bitcoin, with the move towards these ETFs and the institutions getting more involved. So I think that that's like provides some framework for people to understand like there's something happening that we could prove, and it's clear there in the charts. But as for like us entertaining gold in a future economy, I have a feeling that I don't want to say it's naive, but I think we're moving more and more digital as the days progress. So I think it's all about digital assets. And I say this, and it's a little bit deeper in my, and specifically into my work. I say what we're moving into is called the Aquarian economy. So, like some of you might have heard of the Aquarian age. It's this age that is clear and right in front of our faces. It's very technologically advanced. It's potentially a cashless world. It's a world where your identity could perhaps even be delivered through an avatar. Like we're seeing this now, you people are sending emojis with an avatar of them. They have an Xbox account where they have an avatar. They have a metaverse account, they have an avatar. Instagram, you have an avatar. So we're like moving into a world that like will look like a Sims video game. And there's some countries where that's undeniable. It is what it is. Like China, for example. I've seen Vietnam has made some big moves forward in digital identification and a cat having basically admitting that they're moving cashless, and many other countries as well. We've seen what Christine Lagarde has talked about with the digital euro in Europe. I just think digital all the way is their core agenda, and a cashless society is definitely what's happening. The average person doesn't have quote unquote enough money to invest in gold. The only people that are probably getting gold right now are the governments. And for whatever reason, I'm not necessarily sure. I don't know if that answers your question, but I can't do anything about what they're doing. All I could do is follow the money, right? Like just do your best to follow the money and make decisions accordingly.
Yeah, man. And I think one of the things that I like to think about when it comes to the role that gold can continue to play in this digital world is, well, there can definitely be a sort of hybrid, right, of using gold as a way to make money sound again, but representing that in a more digital kind of manner. Just for some reference, right, we had Judy Shelton, who was once an economic advisor to Trump, as well as was nominated to become the actual Fed chair during his first term. She was not confirmed. she very openly said that she was looking to create a new sort of gold standard. And as she was describing it, she described it as being able to do it in a new age cryptocurrency kind of way.
Hmm.
And those words have always stuck with me. That was back in, I think, like 2016 ish. And so that's kind of how I look at how gold can continue to play a role. And, there's a lot of other things that we could talk about with gold, and why, having that physical thing that can potentially even be confiscated might make it less of a good option. Now, I'm not saying, some people have brought up this idea of having the ability to confiscate Bitcoin or other types of cryptocurrencies as well, which
Yeah,
I don't
sure.
think is completely off the table. In fact, what do you think about that? Like sometimes people go really deep and say, um, oh, they'll never let people like actually take advantage of this opportunity.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, one thing to touch on is that this gold confiscation really did happen, right, in 1933. And then some people learn about that and they're like, oh, well, that's America. That didn't happen. It's like 1936, it happened in Europe. Like, it also happened a lot. Like, there's a lot of places in the world at that time where, like, owning gold yourself wasn't even possible. Like, you have to understand, like, it was 100% government slash militarily controlled, and they were the stewards of the gold in circulation. It wasn't like a market product that was just being handed out. It wasn't part of their banking system either. So, anyways, yeah, what's happened before, so why can't it happen again, right? Like, I think that's super crucial for us to consider. Now, as for the Bitcoin thing, I think that in a way, let me take a trip down memory lane, and you could probably resonate with this too. Like when I first got into Bitcoin, when it was like six, seven, $8,000, people around me were saying it's too expensive then. Then
Right.
it went to like 50 to 60 in the last cycle, and people were like, "Oh, it's too expensive." And then it dropped to 15K in the bear market, and people were like, it'll never go to 50 again. Like this thing's gonna go to 10. It's gonna go back to 3, like during the C19 crash. I'm like, so I think retail is scared of Bitcoin generally. Like today, most retail doesn't desire, like they're always gonna say the same thing. Like what's Bitcoin at today? Like 115K, 113K. So of course it's way more quote unquote expensive than it was when it was 8 when I was first buying it, and it's more expensive than when it was 50, and people were saying the same thing. So people are waiting for the day where that's not the case, but I just don't think that will be the case. And in that case, I'm like, well, then what are they confiscating? If all the Bitcoin is not even being held by retail, it's just the same whales that are effectively government and intelligence agencies. So I would tell people who are thinking that way, that's not their main concern. You know what would be the best thing they could possibly do is allow this gambling casino to be created digitally by all of us, and that's called the coins and meme coins. So everything that's happening on Solana, like what used to happen pretty often on ERC20, like bro, that's us creating our own grave. Like it's so sad. I I'll just bring up something real quick to like hammer down that thought. I remember, was it last year or 2 years ago? There was this bridge in Baltimore that was destroyed, right? And several people died on that bridge when it got destroyed. I believe it was hit by some sort of boat, right? Do you remember this? It was called the Francis Scott Key Bridge.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, bro. So my mom was traveling to Baltimore that day, and
Wow.
I was in a different time zone at the time. So like when I woke up and I heard about the event, I immediately like rushed to my phone to call her. And I was just like so happy that she was fine. And then like moments later, I logged into my community for my Patreon. We include a Discord, and inside of my community is where I learn most of what's happening in the world. And they already had somebody has made like a Francis Scott Key Bridge meme coin on Solana. Like they made a meme coin about this.
Wow.
And I was like, like, what is going, like, is this where we are right now, bro? Like, is this where we are? So anybody who's worried about Bitcoin getting confiscated, like, no, they're just letting all of us destroy our own lives, getting into this pump and dump bull. Like Kanye West makes a coin and in 3 hours it's lost 90%. Like this is that is the confiscation. They're letting us give it to them willfully, right?
Mm,
And
mm.
that's a lot of the money. That's all retail. That there's no institution that's playing that game, bro. They're just multiplying their money and making more of it, and they're letting us flush it down a toilet.
Very, very well said and well thought. Um, you know, to the beginning of what you're saying, it's like initially, who's really participating here? Like, how many people are really participating? It's still in a smaller fraction of society, and even then, to the people that are participating, it's not necessarily to a massive degree. I've gone through some of the data before, and when you look at the Bitcoin holdings, it's something like 50% of the Bitcoin is held by like
Hmm.
20% or even less, I think, of the holders. And this was actually research that was done by the National Bureau of Economic Research. So the exact numbers I don't have off the top of my head, but it was pointing out that the wealth inequality in terms of the Bitcoin, right, is way worse than the wealth inequality that we have at the moment, right? So
Precisely.
the elite, right, in this system are actually separating themselves even further away from the average person. So, so yeah, you're making a very great point of like, listen, um, there's not that many people in the room. So, and on top of that, it's they've separated themselves even further away because they've known, or at least they've been able to have been aware of how, and had the resources to participate and actually take advantage of these opportunities as they've come about. So, and then moving into what you just said about all of the altcoins, and not just altcoins, but the casino aspect of all of this. I
Hmm.
mean, wow, the pump fund phenomena that happened, I guess, last year in 2024, where you've had all these different coins being launched on pump fund. And for people who don't necessarily know a whole ton, it was essentially the casino where people would create these new coins and let them, based upon whatever was happening in the news cycle, right? And people would try and buy these coins as a way to hopefully get some 100x by choosing the right one, the most cultural moment, the most memeable coin, and then, dump it. And at the end of the day, like people have been doing this over and over and over again. And there was a very few small amount of people who were actually getting really rich doing
Hmm.
this. And, what a lot of the times isn't clear is that these people are extremely sophisticated in their financial savvy, but also in the technology that they were using to make this stuff happen. Right.
Hmm.
So, meanwhile, on the outside, it looks like, oh, I'm going to buy, gosh, what was some of them? Like the squirrel that died. I'm going to buy the squirrel that died's token
Yeah.
and get rich today. And it's like, there is an entire, there are these group chats that they have where they're telling each other what they're doing.
Hmm.
And these are just, people not too different than you and I, but at the end of the day, uh, might have even more resources or at least are willing to go right to this extent in order to grow their pie, which is to come up in these little groups, pump each other's little tokens, and tell everyone else, right, to get in right as the things are starting to turn around.
Yep.
And so, anyways, when you, as you said, like you've got basically people just robbing each other, right, through these tokens and these mechanisms, and people who don't know any better kind of giving away what could be their easiest chance or opportunity to kind of like actually participate in the growth of this opportunity as it arises. So, yeah, you've made two really incredible points here about like not that many people are paying attention anyways, and the ones that are looking at this as a casino and as a way to get rich quick
Hmm.
and ruining it. So, um, man, speaking on some of this stuff too, I wanted to get your a little bit more of your story on like how you got into crypto and like when you first saw it, what it meant to you. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. I was studying the Federal Reserve System a little bit, and I was always fascinated with money. And I came across um, it was this, not really like a documentary, maybe we could call it a documentary. It was called Zeitgeist Addendum. And this addendum one was mostly about money. I believe that's the one that's mostly about money and finance. I might be wrong because there's like three of them, but I think it's Addendum. And it was super fascinating to me. When it first came out, I was like, wow, there's a lot here that we're not being, obviously none of it is being taught in school. People that go to like like that are majors in economics, they don't learn this stuff. Bankers don't know this stuff. It's just wild, like everybody's being told like just do your job and don't ask questions. And this was sort of revealing a lot of those things that are the questions that some curious people like myself might have, and I got the answers very quickly in this documentary. But that kind of set the foundation for my curiosity and learning more about money and everything that was to come in our financial system, which it's pretty clear that there's lots of change on the horizon, and I then part of the story that got me into crypto was I was doing e-commerce drop shipping, and I had a very successful store in drop shipping, which it was kind of luck in a lot of ways, I'll admit, because I wasn't passionate about it, but I did find a successful product and we were able to scale it. And I was working with an agency and I learned a lot. And then C-19 happened and I had to shut down those businesses because it was dealing with China for the logistics side of it. And everybody's shipping got destroyed, even if you were doing domestic stuff in the States or Canada or whatever, it was pretty much everybody was feeling the same pain with the lockdown. But I gave you the like long story from the past that got me curious. Then I gave you a very local story of like what was the actionable turning point. But then right before I got into ecom, I was just studying like many of us do, how to make money online, like how to make money. And like you come across things like Forex trading or options and I found crypto. And I think I found it at a very good time because I was skeptical, as you should be, as many are. But I already had some background in like finance understanding, and what was the pivotal point for me to decide and take action was when the Federal Reserve came out and basically admitted to the public that they're just going to print money till Valhalla. And I was like, let's go. So I converted all the profits, pretty much all of the profits that I had, besides like 2 or 3 months of rent, from the ecom business into Bitcoin, XRP, Chainlink, couple others, maybe Cardano. And that time horizon between me like first finding out ways to make money online and finally taking action was also long enough for me to really study and understand what the hell I was about to get myself into. So yeah, I gave everybody like the whole story, but the timeline between all of those moments was not like one after the other instantaneous. It was a pretty long amount of time of learning about Bitcoin, XRP, a couple of these, Ethereum and how smart contracts work, and me actually deciding to invest in it. So that was really a discipline because most people who get into crypto, they find some YouTube video and it's like Pepe the Frog, whatever, and they buy it immediately. They don't do any research. They don't know much about how the economy works. They're not getting any signals from central banks or the Fed or anything like to maybe decide accordingly. You know what I mean? Like they don't have any understanding of macro or so I did a lot of due diligence. I put in a lot of hours into the seeking knowledge and answers and getting clarity before I put a single dollar in this casino. And the last thing to say is the time between me closing my e-commerce store and me deciding to like really put a lot of money inside of this market, I spent 14 to 16 hours every single day with no days off studying the charts. I would just pick a day. I'll say I'm going to do 8 hours. I'm going to look at the RSI indicator on every single asset that I possibly can. Relative strength index on all time frames, 3 day, 3 hour. Like I went nuts. I would just look at EMAs like all day. I would commit to that. Bollinger Bands, 1 day session on Bollinger Bands, every time frame. So I got to this point where like I'm very obsessive and I'm like always 110% everything that I do. And I believe that sets me apart in a lot of ways, and it allowed me to have a very successful investment journey. So yeah, that's my story, and hopefully it inspires people to know like it's worth putting in the hours to do research. It's also worth putting in the hours to learn TA. I've heard this so many times. People say you don't need to learn TA, you don't need to learn how to read the charts. But yet again, I'm here 5 years later. I've helped so many people, and all of their mistakes came back to the fact that they didn't know how to read the charts. They were
Mhm.
just blindly Hail Mary passing money into some random thing at a random time, and then it drops 80% value, and then they're and moaning. But if you knew how to read a chart, you could prevent these things, right? Anywho, so yeah, there's a lot of parts to that, but
Yeah, no. So I appreciate you definitely walking us through it totally
of course,
because it provides so much context. And in fact, I think it's very unique in that, you saw the signal from the Fed and then made a decision about crypto. That's rare. Um, yeah, for someone who had never had exposure, right? Everyone usually starts off, for me rather, it was definitely starting off with investing in this asset. For me, it was a technological perspective of like, this looks like it's going to change just the way that systems work. And then it was backwards, learning more about the monetary system, the Fed, uh, how the economy actually works. And my entire career was that it was I went from being deep inside the Bitcoin space to working right in between with the security token kind of industry and
hmm
advising companies on how to tokenize securities to literally actually becoming a licensed investment broker for quite some time. And so um, I went all the way backwards in that regard. And I think a lot of people, a lot of younger people, that's kind of this is their entry into the world of finance and economics a lot of the times because it's just kind of so popular. So
for
very cool
sure.
to hear that. You know, I got to ask you a good little juicy question here because, I know that a lot of your content and the things that you pay attention to have to do with this digital asset called XRP.
Yeah.
And I'm just super curious to hear your thoughts on, why XRP versus something like Bitcoin, or what exactly do you look at as the major differences between these two assets?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be 100% honest. Like, I got into XRP probably in the same way that most people get into XRP. You get like sucked into the endless rabbit hole of the conspiracy behind it. Like, and I'm that guy that like is always attracted to something like weird, you know? So there's definitely that element. But like one thing that is also insanely unique about my background that answers this question is I've studied cults a lot. I've always been fascinated with religion. I've always been fascinated with like how people give their everything to something that is outside of them. It's always been like something for me that's really just like I've always gravitated towards I want to understand how people become so fanatical about something. Because if you ever met anybody who's been traumatized or taken advantage, like like not had a good experience in a cult, they say the same things. They say at the start, I had no idea. Like I had no idea I was being used and eventually abused. So I had so much knowledge and understanding about that before I got into like this world of crypto. And it's so funny because so much of crypto is a cult. Like especially, I think a great example is most people's gateway into crypto is like with the Bitcoin maxis, like these people that are
Hmm.
like all or nothing. Like if you have anything outside of Bitcoin, like you're basically my arch nemesis.
Yep.
And then I
Yep.
find the XRP army and they're the same. Like so I study
Yep.
cults. So when I got to the point in that rabbit hole that I was diving into where I noticed like there's this like dangerous side to what's going on here, I quickly retreated and I like manned up and I asked myself like as a leader and a man and somebody who wants to like lead the charge for my people and my community, like I want to do this honorably. So I really have to be careful about the way that I speak about these things because I definitely want to make sure that if anyone comes to my channel, they do not associate me with somebody that's like part of the XRP army or a Bitcoin maxi or a Link Marine or a Hexagon or whatever these people call themselves. Like I'm waters above. That's it, and I have my truth to share with you. I'm not sponsored by any of these companies. I don't have any paid promotions or sponsorships at all. I don't share any like, so really my energy, and you know this about me because we had a talk like recently, just like a man-to-man talk about life. And so I gotta say, I got into XRP and Ripple and probably like everybody else. But what makes me a little different is I decided to look at like how can I invest in this thing but not be a part of its cult? And I know the charts. So I was aware like there's a way that XRP moves that is
Dude,
very right.
facts.
Yeah.
But keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So like in the first site, like I don't want to jump around too many lanes, but I hope this is a valuable answer. Like when I got in the first cycle, I kept saying to myself after the end of it, because by the way, my channel started when XRP made that move from like the crash of the Ripple SEC lawsuit all the way up to like a dollar 90 something. So it did a 10x at the start of that lawsuit. And I have a video inside of my crypto mastermind course, the course that I'm still like, it's still a really big part of my work to this day. And I'm filming as it's like 18 cents crashing because it's getting delisted from all these exchanges. And you can just hear it in my voice, like how giddy I am, because I'm like, this thing is so oversold. This is the best fucking buying opportunity of all time. This whole thing is a psyop. Like, you need to buy this thing right now. It's at rock bottom. Morale is trashed. Every signal of blood in the streets and pain was there. And as a sophisticated investor, and you have to be neutral about this, emotionless, stoic, I knew that that was the best buying opportunity ever. And then what happened was it again, we didn't get to this part yet, but I do these esoteric elements to my work. So I have these additional tools that I use. I won't talk too much about that now just to stay on track, but I had those tools at my disposal and I was utilizing them to determine that in April of 2021, we would get a rise in XRP. It'd be the first time it'll break a dollar, but it's not going to do something miraculous. Like it's probably going to leave you with blue balls. And it did. And I was very open in my channel that I'm taking profits at these levels. I used one of my tools to determine those profit taking things. I teach this in my exit strategy blueprint, which is also included in my crypto mastermind. And long story short, I noticed in the public when I was telling them that I was taking profits, bro, they were crucifying me. They were like, you're wrong. It's going to $5. It's going to 10, like you idiot. And it was all the XRP army people. And I'm like, bro, I'm out here doing more work than all of y'all, and you're crucifying me? So it just showed me like it showed me humanity. It showed me the cult, and it taught me a lesson like you can't fall for this. Like you have to, everybody's listening right now because we're in a bull run. You're gonna feel the same way. You're going to get greedy to the upside, and people who are conservative, you're going to start clowning on them, but they're the ones that are going to win. They're the ones that are going to walk away with way more money than they started. They're not going to be chasing some arbitrary number to the top, and then they're not going to be trying to get out after the retracement, right, of like 80%. So you're going to be panic selling after you were already in profits and now you're at losses because you're clowning on somebody else who has a plan. So just reserve your opinions, reserve that energy, do you stay in your own lane. And I guess this sort of answers your question of like I went through it all with this XRP community, but I always saw opportunities in the charts because of TA. And this cycle was no different. So I stacked up as much XRP as I possibly could around that 40 to 50 cent territory. I told everyone like we will get a jump up. I actually was wrong about something regarding the timing of the next move up into price discovery. So I don't mind admitting this. But overall, if anybody was positioning themselves when you should be positioning yourself, which is when something is boring and low in price, then you're good. Like every play that anybody's in should be up 600 to 700% on XRP, unless you're just buying recently. So again, people wait and wait and wait till something's looking good, and they avoid when it's low. That's another learning experience for everybody too.
Absolutely, man. And we'll definitely start to move into that as well. But I just wanted to point out that you definitely have carved out a very unique space for yourself. I was talking to someone in my community yesterday about how he finds it weird that influencers or whatever you want to call commentators in the crypto world very often kind of like ignore the third largest digital asset that's not Tether.
Yeah.
And, he was pointing out that he felt that that was a little bit maybe disingenuous. Like, why is it that people aren't really talking about it? There's very few. And then the few that are, it's like it can be a very cult like kind of experience when you enter that
Yeah.
world. So I think that you have carved out a very unique space and making it objective about what's happening in the charts at the very least, and the different types of information that you use from outside of the charts to also inform, right, what you're seeing in the charts. And I think that that can be very powerful as well. But
100%.
but yeah, I just wanted to give your kudos to you because there's just so much of the hoopla around the digital asset XRP and the narrative behind it. And although I think it's worth investigating and continuing to understand that, the worst thing is to be so far sucked into that you actually end up missing what I believe, right, are things that are even more important or fundamental to even making that matter.
Yeah.
But
100%.
mhm. So, let's talk a little bit about the decisions that people are making with their money and how maybe they're being a little bit influenced to make these decisions, because I think this is another really important thing. It hopefully goes right into what you were just talking about how, you know, it's easy to get sucked into these communities and these narratives, but at the end of the day, there's signs, there is data that you're being given that can help you to make better decisions. And a lot of times we get caught up in making poor decisions due to our own human nature. And in fact, markets are designed to kind of do that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you a little bit about that side of things. How do you look at like the behavioral aspect of finance and
Yeah.
some of the decisions that people make?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that this is actually my specialty. Like the thing that I think I excel the most at, if I had to be like when people meet me in person and they're like, "What do you do?" This is usually what I tell them that I do. Like with most of my clients that I have one-on-one mentorships, whatever I'm doing with my coaching, and even in my university, which is not about crypto at all. It's about learning how to create businesses and how to become an entrepreneur. Everything comes back to your emotions. So one of the things that like if I had to give a raw truth to start, humans are skeletons with emotion. Now, there's a difference between feeling and emotion, and this is something that we could all work at. And this will make you, of course, a much better investor. It'll make you a better leader. It'll make you a better business owner. It'll make you a better man. And it's just the realization that emotions mislead you, feelings guide you. The problem with man is that we don't have access to our intuition anymore. We're too caught up and we're too busy in expecting other people to have the answers for us, and we rely on everybody to give us those answers. Man struggles with finding his own truth. Man can't even think for himself anymore. So, what happens with the average human being is they always are seeking validation, but they never think that they have the right answer or the truth. They always, effectively, I could just summarize it by saying very few people believe in themselves. Then, when we do see somebody who believes in themselves, we call them a narcissist or we say they have a big ego or whatever. It's very polarizing right now. So, my whole thing is when I see somebody that is embodying their truth and embodying what they stand for and they're sticking to it, I just look at there's confidence there. And there's nothing that we should be triggered by. Like, let them do them. Don't get concerned with how another person is operating their life, unless it affects you, of course, personally. So, this is actually what I spend about 90% of my business on with helping people is like how to get the mindset right, how to be a mastermind. Um, so if you have any other questions that branch off of that, we could go in so many different directions, brother.
Very cool, man. And there's once again, so few people that are really, really focusing in on that aspect when really it's 90% of the
Hmm.
game, you know. everybody has access to the same charts, you know.
Yes.
Whether or not people choose to investigate how they work is another thing, but for the people that are, it's not enough, you know. I recently this year read a book called Market Mind Games by Denise Shull. And the biggest takeaway that I got from this book was she commented on something very similar to what you said. She says that, you know, emotions are data points that you can use in order to actually make better decisions. And so instead of trying to completely ignore or suppress your emotions when making financial decisions, it might be a better option to actually recognize them, feel them, write them down, and actually allow that to flow through you in a way that allows you to make the best decision with the information of the feelings that you have.
Yes. It's a little bit more advanced. Effectively, what happens with people today is they don't want to feel anything. Everything is to numb. And this is why there's so much success with TikTok and why getting people like lost in the infinite the doom scroll, if you will, is the trap. And this is going on for so many people. Like we have too many options right now to find a answer or to find information or to find data. You open up the internet and now you throw in the chat GPT element and like we're even more lost. It's like we don't know where to go. So if anything, yeah, there's a lot of truth in that. We're not feeling at all. We're very quick to numb when things get uncomfortable and when we have to make decisions for ourselves and go towards the path of self-reliance. We opt out for comfort and convenience, but at the expense of numbing. It sounds a little doom and gloom, but I think it is something that by talking about it openly, we could at least address it. Like, I know that I've done this to myself so many times. I just had to man up and admit it. I just had to say, like, hey, you're being emotional right now, man. Stop it. Like, this could be so much easier if you get out of your own head. The problem is it's getting out of your own head, right? It's so difficult to actually practice. It's easy to talk and pontificate and, go on this philosophical back and forth with anybody, whether it's friends, family, it doesn't matter. It's a different thing to actually take the action at the most uncomfortable times, which is when it matters most. Like, what will you do when it's time to go to war? That's the thing. 99.99% run away and hide. And guess what? Like when you're playing in this game of finance and you're becoming especially a crypto investor, which I believe a lot of your audience probably is, you're kind of entering a battle. Like you're entering a war. I know we don't want to make it sound so serious, but like, bro, that's why you're all emotional about it.
Yeah, I mean,
That's why you're all in your feelings about it. It's because people like literally there's scar tissue at the end of the day. It's nasty.
no doubt about it. I mean, when I first started getting into financial markets, as far as, looking at the shorter time frames, especially and really in crypto, you do get to zoom out because of the high volatility. It's still there. It's like
Yeah.
I realized pretty quickly, like this is warfare,
Yep.
you know, like this is people's lives on the line, every day, every second in these markets is people are putting their lives on the line.
Yeah.
And it is designed, the way that markets move are designed to absolutely get people into this position of giving away, right, their livelihood and doing it within seconds.
Yep.
um, so, you know, uh, I guess the big question that I would like to follow up with on this is like, what do you think are some of the biggest kind of psychological or behavioral mistakes that you see people making over and over again?
The number one is like their why is not righteous. Like their why is not honorable. So what do I mean by that? A lot of people's why in crypto or in investing is to get rich. Like I'm sorry, but that's a really weak why. You need to take a moment, go within and get a better why. Like, by the way, I don't get to determine this. If your listener is thinking, well, getting rich is going to solve all my problems, best of luck to you. I've met people who have 10 million, 50 million. I've met one person who has allegedly 100 million net worth total. There was no happiness along that curve. There was no feeling of self-improvement along that curve. There was nothing better really about that. It's you get to a point where you have like what we call you money, and you realize that all money does is solve money problems. So when you make your why, when you're at the, let's just say you're not in the most abundant state regarding your bank account, if you want to actually be at that level where you have million, 10 million plus, you're going to need to have a better why. And when your why starts being about something bigger than just something material, like being rich or being a millionaire or whatever, then you'll start to see like the universe will align accordingly. Like I'm a very spiritual person and I believe in this. Like you need to realize that everything is happening for you, not against you. So whenever you're feeling some pain, the pain is there as a teacher. It will leave when it's done teaching you, but you have to realize it is what it is. So all this suffering and all this depression and all this stuff people are feeling, it's actually, I don't want to say it's a good thing because people are going to take that out of context, but it's getting you to that state to realize that there was opportunities for you to be more grateful for what you had and you didn't walk in grace.
Mm.
When you have a better why, being a millionaire doesn't concern you because you're a trillionaire. Like my favorite thing, somebody that's really close to me, I asked him how much, it was just a joke. And I was like, how much are you worth? And he was like, I'm a trillionaire. And like homie doesn't even have probably like 10 grand. But just the energy about his answer and like how like in it he was, like when you see that level of confidence, it was so beautiful to me. I was like inspired. I saw a dragon breathing fire. I didn't even see a man anymore. And
Mm.
this is what I work with my clients. Like you have to see it for what it is, that this is all just the universe working for you. Let it work for you. Stop putting in this material slash egoic, framework of what you believe matters. Because that's pretty much most people, right? Like, unfortunately, most people think how many likes they get on a Facebook post is what matters. They think how much money they have in their bank account is what matters. They think what type of car they drive is what matters. They think whatever social status they have in their friend group is what matters. And like, as you mature and as you become more in your purpose, you see that these things aren't really the same value system that they once were. Or at least hopefully you wake up to the fact that those things aren't nearly what you were programmed to believe.
Love it, man. Love it. I think that's actually going to be a really good place for us to wrap. But I did want to uh, ask you, how can people actually engage with you and go deeper on some of these topics? Because once again, there's very few people that are really taking that side of this seriously. So I'm curious as to what are some of the ways to work with you.
Well, everyone can go check out my YouTube channel. I'll probably have a new YouTube video coming out pretty soon, but every single week over at patreon.com/watersabove, I do what's called a Red Pill podcast. And in the Red Pill podcast, I do a weekly market wrap up. I give all my thoughts on what I see for the week ahead, what just happened the week prior, and I share some analysis, also decoding, and I share some really interesting thoughts on what I see happening, usually at least a month or two into the future. And that also includes access to our community Discord. So you'll pretty much be surrounded with a bunch of conscious beings that are talking about these sorts of things. It's a really beautiful thing that we have going over there. So that's where I'm more regularly active. And then feel free to check out watersabove.com if you want to see a little bit more about what I have going on over there.
Love it. I'll make sure to leave those links in the description of this video. And Waters Above, I can't thank you enough for reaching out and making this happen, man.
Yeah, brother. I'm grateful to have joined here today with you, and I'm really looking forward to the next chat already.
Yes, sir. Until next time.
Appreciate you, man.